My name's Judy Lastly, and I'll be here to help facilitate the meeting today. And I'm going to cover a few of the items, just some opening commentary, and then the general agenda. So just for everyone that's in the room and speaking and those that are on virtually, we are recording via Teams. The presentations, as our usual policy, will be posted out to the website upon conclusion as soon as we finish everything up. Any of the meeting room rules, were provided to you via registration, and we're also on the meeting app. And virtual attendees, at this point, would you please type your name into chat and make sure that your email is in there. That's our way of taking official attendance and making sure that you're active. The agenda. All of you that are in the room have a copy of the agenda in front of you, but I have a couple of adjustments to make for that. And I've got those highlighted in red for right now. And if I could draw your attention to segment 2, the second half after the break, where I have that highlighted, the relationship and external requirements reports. We had some unusual circumstances where the individuals that are listed there on your agenda, Siegfried, Andre, and Michael Young, were unable to make it to this meeting. Covering on their behalf is Jeff Ewing and Mark Rodriguez, and there will not be a report for Michael Young. And I have highlighted the other ones because of this change, we had some travel itinerary issues to cover. So we've adjusted this by flip-flopping between performance and the relationship side. So just please make a note of that, and the running order will change slightly, but everything else should be okay. All right, regarding the meeting itself, there's 27 full members that make up the General Assembly for this meeting. We have quorum when we have 2/3 of the population there, and based on the numbers that are listed there, we have 23 attending in person. We have 3 members that are attending virtually, and then we have 1 person that's provided the proxy from Turkish Aerospace to Leonardo. So with that, we're declaring quorum. In the meeting today, there'll be 3 decisions. One of them, as usual, are our meeting minutes from the previous meeting, which was in Brussels. That information was provided to the full members previously as a preview so that you can look at that in advance. Additionally, we'll be looking at the 2024 budget, which a draft copy of that was provided to you also on the 5th of October and reviewed in various meetings during our week here together. The formal transition will be the final vote, and that's moving from the current IAQG president, Andy Mayer, to the next nominated person that will take on the leadership role of the IAQG president. So the process today that we'll be covering for those 3 decisions will be virtual members. When we call for that decision, you'll type it into the chat as either yes or no with your name. That way we'll make sure that we're counting. If you're attending virtually and you're not a full member, please don't enter a vote. The results of the decisions obviously will be reviewed in the meeting as well as documented in the meeting minutes. So with that, we are at our first decision vote, and I'm going to look around the room because we do have quorum in the room. And for those of you that are full members online, this is your first chance to test that, putting your yes or no in. So do the full members accept the April 2023 meeting minutes from Brussels, Belgium? And if so, I think the best way for us to do is just either raise your hand or give me a thumbs up for those in the room. And those that are virtually attending, again, this is your time to put in yes or no if you are one of those 3 full members. So looking around, thumbs up, raise your hand. We're good. Okay, we've got quorum in the room, and then we'll double check those that are virtually online. All right, with that, we're ready for Andy to come up and look at the executive committee progress report.
Okay, good morning everyone. Thank you for attending the 54th General Assembly. I'm Andy Marr. I'm the IAQG president, and I represent BAE Systems as a company. Today we're going to go through a number of topics. I suppose what I want to do is just build, a little bit of celebration in terms of the 25 years of the IAQG. So to take you through some key points with respect to that, and then we'll work into what the executive committee have been looking at and some of the things that we've achieved in 2023. So before we start in the executive update, we've got to acknowledge our sponsors for the event. Without these people providing us the opportunity to see their products, it would mean that we would have to maybe come to the membership for additional meeting funds, etc. So it's really important that we continue to get the sponsors. It's also really important for you as individuals to look at the products that are available on the marketplace. So Intact, as a partner in terms of Oasis V3, offers a number of products in terms of the certification space. So please do, during the breaks, go out and speak to the relevant people. Jake's here. From a BSI point of view, a long-term sponsor for us, been with us throughout the COVID period and previous to that as well. BSI have got Brendan and Miranda here today, so please do take the opportunity to go and speak to those just outside while you get the coffees during the break. And finally, we welcome back Omnex, who have been presented previously at some of our meetings. They're available today, and it's a great pleasure to have them back supporting the IAQG. So let's have a quick look at our history. 25 years. You can see from the screen, officially formed in 1998. The first standard a year later. So, not too long in terms of that writing period, but that's probably because lots of work had been taking place, just prior to that official forming. You can see from the screen there that also we've got the Oasis development in 2004. So a core key product of the IAQG. Hasn't been quite as long as the IAQG, but obviously in its early days. If you look then at the bridge to where we are today from 2005 onwards, we've got the introduction of Asia Pacific into the group. So really important to make that a worldwide view as opposed to just Europe and the Americas sector. We then went forward in 2008 to develop the Supply Chain Management Handbook. So, those of you in the room last night saw Mark Doolittle get recognition for his participation and his drive and enthusiasm to continue to drive that forward. And it still remains a key body of information for the industry at large to be able to go to and source the relevant information. We've then got the legal incorporation. So this was just slightly before my time in working with the IAQG. What I would say from talking to people that were involved at that time, it nearly split the IAQG. So we're really fortunate to be here 25 years later, because when the decision was being made around the incorporation and the location of that incorporation, the relationships got quite fractious. So pleased to say we're not in that position now. In 2021, we launched another tool, so AIM. You'll have heard Roberto last night in the video excerpts, the talking heads. Really, really important for the IAQG to step through this. And I thought what was, quite interesting was Roberto was keen to get the model and the tool out into the supply chain. And with hindsight, he recognised that actually it was a better decision to make sure that we protected that tool as opposed to just releasing it in a spreadsheet type equivalent format. And then if you look at 2022, obviously we've got the signing of a single standards development organisation with SAE. So really important around IAQG leveraging a partnership to be able to increase speed to market, get translations conducted in a timely fashion, and really be able to provide our wares to enable industry to improve. So lots and lots going on in in those 24 years. So what does the future look like, and what's 2023 looked like? We said at the beginning of this year when we met in Orlando that we had 5 priorities. The first priority was around securing confidence in the IAQG, and that's with respect to making sure we've got robust products and services. We heard yesterday in the Operations Council that some of our customers are starting to question the robustness of our scheme. So we've got to listen to that feedback and make sure we take appropriate action, as you'd expect. The second one was around building the ecosystem. And, if you're involved in the supply chain, you'll have heard ecosystem, whether it be through third-party logistics or even four-party logistics now, whether it be through, really integrating that demand versus supply information. And so it's not unusual for us to think of the IAQG and think about how we provide a connected offering of all our products to the users. The third one was with respect to partnerships and stakeholders. So I've mentioned a little bit about that on the last slide with SAE. You'll hear more news later this morning from Mark and team around an opportunity around training. But this is really about leveraging the strengths of those partners to make sure we can continue to advance the mission. Number 4 is really important to people. And I think if I reflect on the industry post-COVID, a lot of the rates have increased. So pre-COVID, single aisle aircraft numbers, were broadly around 60 a month. Post-COVID, not only have you seen that 60, it's going to 70 plus. In China, you've seen over 1,000 orders in terms of the C919. And I think we've got into a routine of being able to work like we did through COVID in terms of remotely, but our diaries are very, very busy. Everyone's diary is very, very busy. There's a great increase in demand in the industry, and I've named commercial, but if you look at the defence industry with what's going on, Ukraine, and more recently, obviously in Israel, and so, including space with the application of low Earth orbit and the number of satellites that are being launched, all the areas, aviation, space and defence, are seeing growth at a time when the industry is still recovering in some aspects from where it was in COVID. So lots of pressure on the people to be able to continue to operate and deliver. And finally, we talked about how do we expand our influence. So what does the IAQG do in order to secure its future with respect to the model, the operating model it uses, the assets that it has and the resources that it has. So where have we come to against those 5 key items? Well, I'm pleased to say, AIM is going through an update. SCMH continues to grow with a more integrated approach, so referencing the standards, referencing AIM, for example, to try and keep people within that ecosystem. We've progressed with a single SDO, so the pilot's nearly complete on the first standard. We've got lots of learning, we're refining that process, and we had a good discussion yesterday around the translation piece, so we're incorporating those lessons learned into the process. So it's a good news in terms of progress. In terms of the ecosystem, we've spent a lot of time over the last 2 years securing the IAQG brand in various different countries. So this is to protect the IAQG and to protect our copyright so that we can consistently go into the market and therefore develop those markets with our products. And we've had a significant increase in the number of visitors to our websites, visitors to our tools, visitors that are downloading the podcasts, and our social media presence. So really pleasing to see the increase in those areas. If I look at stakeholders, we have worked quite diligently in 2023 and the back part of 2022 to secure the International Accreditation Forum recognition of the certification scheme. So this is really important with respect to single SDO. But it's also really important in terms of IAF's global reach. So it opens up a number of other parties that could be interested in partaking in the scheme, and it secures the ability of certification bodies worldwide to be able to assess our scheme, our core product in terms of 9100, 9110 and 9120. If we look at our membership with respect to number 4, we're seeing increased numbers of people wanting to join, not just companies, but also individuals. We're seeing significant communications in terms of people wanting access to our data. So it was only a couple of weeks ago, a firm from Malaysia was willing to pay for access to Oasis. So there's a demand in the market where people want to be able to take the output of what we produce and reference that against performance norms. So we'll continue to look at that in terms of increasing membership. And finally, we do recognise, even if you look around the room today, we are seeing a greater diversity in terms of a number of aspects. So not only, gender's an easy one to look at, but actually we see it in terms of experience, different functions, people that have worked in different areas of the life cycle. So it's really pleasing to have people that aren't just from quality, but from near neighbour functions to be present and take input and output from these meetings. And if we look at expanding our influence, we've spent a lot of time with Oasis this year with respect to our the version 3. There'll be a bit more detail later on, but the reality is it didn't go as well as we'd planned, in terms of launch. We've had a lot of work to do to fix some relatively straightforward issues logging on. We've got work to do in terms of educating people, because there's a number of people that are still struggling, but the system is actually working. So we've got further work there. But you can see some of the numbers at the bottom of the screen around, how many people are logging on, how many users there are of it, how many audits have been entered into the system. And it's really pleasing to see those numbers, 5,000 plus audits in progress in the new system. That demonstrates that people can use the tool set, and we are starting to get the auditors in a position where it's comfortable. We know we've got further work to do in terms of the efficiency. So in another 3 weeks' time, we'll have some further releases. And then 3 weeks beyond that, we've got a view that there's some back-end financial pieces that need fixing. There's about a third of the OP assessors' accesses that need sorting out as well. But the actual audit community should now be up and running with respect to Oasis V3. Training, so really important. Mark's going to talk about it in more detail later, but we are now in a position to progress the training to 9145. So, the companies have been assessed, the tendering process has been through, and we've down selected a company to partner with in order to offer high quality training that will end up with an authentication for the individuals to say that they have been through that training and can practice in the field with respect to tools and techniques from, measurement system analysis, etc. So lots of progress in 2023. A few things to, push over the line between the now and the end of the year, but it definitely feels like the IAQG is on the right trajectory. We celebrated last night the past, present and future. We've got a really rich history from what you could only describe as very humble beginnings. People in, as Dale described it, people in the Rolls-Royce Sports Club coming together to collaborate. It's really quite remarkable how far we've come in the last 25 years. But we do have a lot more to do. There's still lots of things that we can do in order to advance the industry. And I suppose 2 questions to leave you with, what will the IAQG future be like, and what part will you play in determining that future. I've got one little story around Turing. So if you're not aware, Alan Turing was the guy that asked in the 50s whether machines can think. So he came up with a law in order to be able to test machine capacity to make judgments, human judgments. I think it's quite apt because as you walk around San Francisco, if you have ventured out, you can see autonomous cars with the sensors on the roof and sensors on each corner. That hasn't gone perfect. There have been a number of fatalities where the car hasn't made the right decision. So, we've got to think about when we look at autonomy, because there's lots of autonomy, urban air mobility, etc. How are we going to test those rules, particularly around the judgment? And my plea is, if I reference back to, the incident where somebody was fatally killed, the car couldn't make the decision. It couldn't distinguish between a pedestrian crossing the road. This pedestrian had a bike with them and therefore didn't look like a normal silhouette and wasn't at a crossing point. And I think we've got to reflect that the IAQG is, if the system, us, ourselves, just continue to make no decision and don't drive the future, we will end up with others competing around us, or we will lose the confidence of our stakeholders. So we really have to get out of that no decision point. It's better to make the decision, use the data to make the decision, and advance the IAQG, as opposed to just sticking with the status quo. Because, last point, my view is there's nothing permanent except change, and we'll see this rate of change increase because of the demand that I mentioned earlier on the industry to ramp to rate. So thank you very much for listening. I'll hand over to the sector presentations.
Just a quick note, if you do have a phone, I forgot to mention to please silence it. And if you do have to take a call, I know I've already seen a couple people step out, and that's perfectly acceptable. And we do appreciate if you have to make a call that you step out. So with that, over to Eric.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So obviously, I'm Eric Jeffries. I'm here representing the IAQG. Before we jump in, do you know why people in Northern California are so healthy? Because everything around here is no-cal. All right. Since our last meeting in Brussels, we've had a couple of meetings at the sector level. We did our ACOT meeting and auditor workshop in July in St. Louis. It was very different than what we normally do. Rather than having a series of speakers and a bunch of workshops and sessions, we tried to take advantage of the time remaining before go live, and we really focused on OASIS V3 and trying to turn it into a training session. So there were parts about it that went really well. There were some challenges associated with it, but we were trying to make best use of the time and help our stakeholders be prepared for the transition. We also just finished up our meeting in Nashville last week, and then obviously we're looking forward to the meetings in our future. So the next ACOT meeting is likely to be in Orlando, Florida in January. We're still trying to finalize that. The spring meeting is all set. It's in March 11 through 14 in Melbourne, same place it was last year. And our auditor workshop, which will go back to the normal process hopefully next year, is probably going to be in Southern California. We're looking for locations. Depends on availability and pricing, of course, but when we hold meetings in Southern California for the workshop, we have much higher attendance. So our record is about 225 people we had in Southern California, where if you look at, I think we had around 120 in Missouri. So it draws out about another 100 people. So, and we're still looking for, where to go for the fall meeting. Now, on the membership side, we've had quite a bit of activity. So Andy mentioned growth and people wanting to join and support and get engaged in our processes. So we did have Jonathan Hunter is a new voting member representing Kratos Unmanned Systems. But we also had 4 brand new companies join as members. So we had Blue Origin, Cincinnati Thermal Spray, Liebherr Aerospace, and last but not least, Ontic. And we're still working with 2 additionals who have made inquiries, which is Lee Aerospace and Airbus Canada. If you take a look at our leadership team, we did make some changes. So we added Frank Smith, who is also from Bell Textron, to lead our Civil Aviation Authorities role. And we have 2 open positions right now. We have an OMS and the RMO position. We've got a couple of candidates for each of those. And in the very near future, we're going to hold a meeting with the team members so they can select the right person to go to fill those roles. When you think about key activities, if I were to characterize what our focus has been over the last 6 months, it's been trying to work with our stakeholders, understand their concerns, and start developing a plan to increase their confidence. There's a lot of work to be done in this space. There's some concerns that have been raised specifically from NASA and DCMA within our sector, but we have started some things, right? So we continue to have, I'd say, challenges with the implementation of AS 9018, and especially as it relates to understanding how to utilize and properly implement. That applies to DCMA as well as certified organizations, as well as the CB world. So there is a team working on updates to the standard that will provide us some clarity on that and some guidance on that. You'll probably recall that I shared last time the soft grading concern that both NASA and DCMA raised. We still have work to do in that area, but the ACOT developed a tool to be deployed within our sector for oversight activity. And this tool is going to be used on whether it's an office or a witness assessment, it's going to evaluate the grading of those NCRs by the auditor being observed or the files being reviewed. We're going to collect that data, analyze it, report back to DCMA, and then determine if we need to take further action. So we've got that in works. As far as just regular support of DCMA to try and build confidence, we did provide an in-person update on the IAQG, its mission, its value, its product offerings to more than 175 individual DCMA employees. And then finally, we continue to provide support on the DCMA training. So they have a pilot auditor training program that's being put together that is going to teach DCMA auditors a better understanding of the requirements of the standard, how to write better nonconformances, and it'll also touch on the 9018 elements that we've talked about. So they plan to roll that out across the entire agency for their auditors. We're also starting to see dividends from our early career program. So we now have 7 people deployed. All 7 of these individuals have projects that they're working within our sector. We are also encouraging them to work with, cross sector and to build relationships with their peers and even work cross sector projects. And so we had Nicholas Belly here this week from Bombardier, who joined the ICOT meeting and ran data in real time and pulled numbers for us so we could better understand the trend for auditor authentications that we're seeing. We thought before, well, we know for this year, the overall authentications are down. There's more people that are not renewing or leaving dropping their AEA versus what's coming in. But when you look at the data over a few years, it's really within the norms, and we're kind of holding stable. So I don't know that we're holding, we're keeping up with the increase in certificates. So we still have a potential resolution coming out that may bring forward that auditor advancement process earlier so that we can increase the number of auditors and provide about, we have about 400 AAs. And some portion of them, we think probably 30 or 40% could potentially advance to AEA right away using that process. So our near-term focus, we're going to continue to work those customer initiatives, and there's still a lot of work to be done there. Of course, we've got transition readiness activities, which I'll give you an update in my next presentation. Of course, OASIS stabilization, which you'll hear about, and then just we'll keep looking for individual opportunities for improvement. So I have one in the next presentation to show you. But one of the things we've been doing is just trying to find one thing at a time and make little improvements. We've got all these big activities going on, but we've not lost sight of just trying to make little bitty adjustments, because if we just keep doing that, we're always getting better. So that's it for the Americas. So thank you all very much.
Okay, it's working. Good morning, everybody. It's Nino Giardina from Leonardo, as you know. I'm going to give you briefly the status of the sector, the European sector, IAQG. So just a brief situation: 10 full members, no changes about that. 14 associate, no changes, 24 affiliate members. Here we had a change for the first time in the decreasing, but it's absolutely normal, something that stays within the decision of each company to have or not to have an affiliate in the other sector while they are members in a sector. And therefore Parker Megit removed the affiliation membership in Europe and is managing the membership to the IAQG from the American sector. This doesn't mean that all the Parker staff in Europe are welcome to attend the activities. So this doesn't change in terms of inclusivity. We had a change in the representatives, and now Çağlar Yara is the Turkish aerospace industry representative. In terms of members, you see that we have now exactly the same number of affiliate as full and associate. So the affiliate are doubling the number of members in the European sector. This is the situation of the full and associate members. Red the full, blue the associate. I'm still we're still showing the suspended member. I hope this means something for the future, positive thinking for the future. The affiliate member, we are used to split them in 3 categories. These are affiliate members that are autonomous companies that decided to become affiliate, no changes about that. But those are not linked to other members, they are not subsidiaries. Oh, okay, these are indeed the subsidiaries. You see Airbus, Avio, Fokker, and so on. That is where Parker Megit have an affiliate, but in the future we are expecting new affiliates in this category. There are other companies that wanted to have this situation. And this, the final one is, okay, sorry. This is too much. Okay, these are the trade associations. You remember that we launched from Europe this way to involve the small, medium enterprises through the involvement as associate of the full of the trade associations. And we had no changes about that in this period. Okay. There's a bit of delay. This is the status of the executive committee of the full members. I already mentioned the change for Turkish aerospace industries. The meeting we had in September in Linköping, thank you again to SAB. We had 80 attendees, and we did it virtually and face-to-face, so in a hybrid mode. And we are still experiencing the importance to keep the hybrid mode in place in order to allow 60% of people attending more. Otherwise, we would have had, as usual, the number of attendees as in the past when we were just face-to-face. So thank you, Sab, again for hosting the meeting. Just very briefly, I wanted to mention some footprint of activities coming from the teams into European sector, also to witness how the European sector is complex and there are a lot of things to manage in order to keep the network together. These are the key figures in terms of certification oversight team in Europe. So 7,500 certified organizations, 9 accreditation bodies, 38 certification bodies, 600 authenticated aerospace auditors, 8 RMS, 3 active country group. Unfortunately, the Russian one is no longer active. 75 industry qualified OP assessors, 100 annual oversight done by industry. This is a lot and very articulated situation. In terms of highlights, of course, we are working within the ECOT to sustain, promote the recognition of the ICOP scheme within the authorities. I just want, and about the ECOT, I wanted to thank Barbara Davalos, of course, that is taking care of it in Europe. Again, I wanted to highlight what we specifically did in Europe with regard to the PSCI. We launched a network dedicated to Europe. Thank you, Gael, for this, in order to foster, promote the use of the ECMH through the European network, to collect the needs, the specific needs that come from the European country, small, medium enterprises, trade associations, and so on, with results about that, and also to get a feedback, even from the smallest PMA that are very active in Europe. The early career already mentioned by Eric. We are very, very happy in Europe of how this is being developed. Now we have 2, you see, 4, 8, 10, 12 early careers involved. But the thing I'm more happy is not that we launched a project, we had 12 people, and now the 12 people is going to leave after having done something. We put in place a real process, because they continue coming from the companies to get this period of experience as early career and then move into the teams. So what we are doing is, in my opinion, that for the first time, IAQG have in place, let me say, HR strategy to be attractive for the high potential guys in our companies, because they are talking each other, they are enlarging this idea, and this is becoming very, very successful. In Europe, it's written here, there's an initiative, autonomous initiative of the early career. They did also a survey. What's the opinion, what's the knowledge of the early people in our companies, young people in our companies about IAQG? So extremely positive experience together with the other sectors, of course. The ambition is to create a cross-sectorial capability about that and projects that can involve early careers from all the sectors. What we are going to be focused on, of course, potential of Oasis V3, full potential. We have a lot of expectation about Oasis V3. I remind all of you the reasons why we did it. We are doing this, and we have to get that to the full potential. Also in terms of data management, also in terms of getting the information we need. Of course, there is the ICOP transition. That is something that we decided to bring together to launch in a more coordinated and synchronic way, and the European sector is ready to support it as we did it up to now. The single SDO process. The single SDO process, more about that later, is challenging for translation issues that we will mention also later. And in Europe is particularly challenging, taking into account the languages we have, but we are ready to refine and make the translation process effective. I already mentioned the early career. We want to insist and be focused on them. The European network is a valuable resource for the association, and although we changed the single SDO and so on and so forth, we need to keep it consistent and effective. Also managing the trade associations, the small enterprises, and all the contributors and stakeholders. The membership commitment is something we are very focused. It's important now because we are changing the ballot process and we need to be very focused on keeping the contribution of all of them together. Communication and collaboration is something that I kept from the previous meetings, is a mantra. We are very articulated and we need to use as much as possible all the tools to be effective and to be inclusive. And to manage diversity, as Andy said, is something that we can perceive now, how different functions are involved, young people with experience, and communication and collaboration is something that is needed for this. Thank you for your attention. Who's this?
Yeah, one thing I did forget to mention is we did find a pair of regular glasses here. So if anybody lost some, they are up here. Okay.
Oh, good morning again. おはようございます。I'm Suguru Watanabe, Director of Quality for Commercial Aviation, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. I will explain IAQG sector activities. First is IAQG members. IAQG members are constantly composed of 36 organizations in total. China, India, Korea, Japan, Singapore organize a national aerospace quality group. We have a new member, and we have a new member company from India, Mahindra Aerostructures, joined our activities from last IAQG meeting. So, IAQG full voting member listed in this chart. We don't have any change from last meeting. And then next is IAQG sector meeting summary. We had held a IAQG meeting in Seoul, South Korea, September. Almost 60 members attended in total, physically and remotely. In that meeting, the latest information about IAQG activities and IAQG products update to all IAQG members, such as requirements, certification scheme transition, single SDO application, and PSCI SCMH performance, and the relationship with stakeholders, and the requested support for IAQG activities. And also, we shared activities of aerospace quality group in 5 countries. All IAQG made the presentation, what activities going and focused on. Each IAQG introduce IAQG products to support stakeholders in their countries as well as before. And we restarted early career project as IAQG activities. 3 members from China, Korea, and Japan joined these activities. They presented the IAQG, APQG activities analysis and suggested some improvement for our activities from their discussion during APQG meeting 2 days. To reflect new idea from this activity, members were requested to attend to IAQG PSI meeting and discuss ideas. And we had 2 separate meetings other than APQG Council meeting and early career activities. First is the APQG COT ICOP scheme to maintain our certification scheme and Space Forum meetings. Space Forum meeting was an open meeting to inform and expand their activities with stakeholders related to space in each country. And we are going to have a next meeting in Thailand in March next year. This is a photo with all members in person. Last chart of my presentation include our key activities, project, and those progress in this year. For Seamless DO application, we supported the process of approving the translation IA 9137 standard in 3 languages. As pilot case, we made feedback about translation description and translation approving process to improve. Regarding to Space Forum activity, members from APQG Space Forum attended APR SAF meeting in Indonesia last March to promote QMS application and make relationship with space agency and companies in many countries in Asia Pacific. And I requested more active, aggressive participation and engagement by APQG members to IAQG each stream activities and producing IAQG products. That's all I have today. Thank you for your attention.
Good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Alex Valderay. I am the IAQG treasurer. It's good to see everybody this morning, bright and cheery and chipper and ready to go over finances. So, all right, see, I like that excitement. All right, so it's, yeah. So as is, I guess, tradition, I'll start out with a review of the 2023 year to date. So this data and what I'll present in other slides is as up to date as I can get it, basically through the end of the 3rd quarter. Now, I'm not going to go over bullet by bullet unless somebody wants me to expand on a particular item. But so far, 2023 has been challenging in many regards, finance included. We've had some challenges, as Annie mentioned, with the interface between our new version of OASIS. By the way, has that ever gotten an official name? Are we calling it just V3 or is it V3? Yeah, okay. So the V3 finance interface is, as of today, still not operational. So what that has led to is some challenges in finance with respect to invoicing and cash flow. So as a result, we have used some of our financial reserves to fund our operations and our efforts while we fix this interfacing issue, which is effectively a delay in finances. So I think, as Andy has mentioned, there are quite a few certificates that have been published or are in work, so on and so forth. And you'll see in another slide coming up that we anticipate a good overall financial year, but right now the cash inflows, the revenue inflows are just simply delayed. It's not that they're not there, it's that I have no way to record them into the finance system. Notwithstanding, our overall standard sales appear to be on track in as much as I can tell from a finance perspective. My vision ends at the end of June, which is really where that turn on occurred with the new version 3. And I feel that we should make our budget targets for the year, which includes revenue. Again, I'm anticipating this is just a delay, but a delay that we were prepared for. So the purpose of this slide, I'm sure it's difficult to see the numbering, but what I'm trying to show you here, these are cash flow statements. On your left is the cash flow statement for this year to date. Let's call it to date. Which shows, as I indicated on the prior slide, a negative cash flow, as opposed to last year at this time, which was a positive cash flow of about $500,000. To date, this year, it's negative $400,000. Notwithstanding those challenges, and why this slide is up here is, and again, it's hard to see, but on the bottom line is our cash balance basically in our checking account. So even though there's been about $1 million worth of cash flow swing year over year, our bank account is different by a couple of $100,000. So the Treasury has taken some actions to mitigate the delay in inbound cash to the Treasury and tried to preserve our bank account balance as much as possible. Now, where you're going to see that effort is here. Again, apologies for the text. You probably can't see it too well, but I'll walk you through a little bit. The left column, the middle column, if you will, is this year to date in our balance sheet. The rightmost column is last year to date, so comparable terms. I discussed the preservation of cash, of capital in our bank account. How did I do that? You see it here on the balance sheet. In the, let's see, the second line item down in our accounts receivable, last year it was over $500,000, approaching $600,000. This year it's $140,000. As I stand here before you, it's probably a little bit less, really. So that delta represented some of the cash inflows to our bank account that propped up and maintained the levels that I think we have grown accustomed to and helped fund activities. But that's where it came from, is accounts receivable. So I went out basically in July and I started collecting. I started acting as a collections agent and went after some delinquent accounts and received some monies back. So that's how I was able to stem the tide there. But notwithstanding, again, you'll see in our current liabilities, which is just below that thick black line in about the middle of the page. Our current liabilities, that's where you see some of the cash outflow. So from year to year, our current liabilities have decreased. That means we've paid a lot more bills, and basically, and that's represented our cash outflow. So they almost balance, and again, despite the challenges that we face this year with finance, our balance sheet, although it's taken a hit, it's only about 6 or 7% difference year over year. So our balance sheet last year at this time was about 9.6 million. This year, right now, it's just over 9 million. I expect that when I present in spring of 2024, our balance sheet will be back up to normal levels and maybe even breaking that $10 million point. All right, so my message is that despite the challenges, we're doing well. We have contingency cash reserves. We have other reserves that we can draw upon. As a matter of fact, we can continue in this fashion comfortably through the end of the next year, if need be, although I don't anticipate that happening. All right. So our sales to budget, expenses to budget, primarily, we're a little off again this year at this point because of our cash collection and because I haven't been able to book new invoices owing to that interface between Oasis V3 and our finance system being at this point in-op. And I am working with Intact and Jaspin to get that online. I hope to have that online in the first couple of days in November, and then I'll do a lot of the catch-up billing, and I anticipate by the end of this year that we will meet our revenue targets, as well as our expenses will be a little bit over, primarily due to the Oasis challenges and some other items. But in general, we'll be at a net positive at the end of the year, albeit not as much as was projected, but we'll be pretty much where we have been. It's just a delay. I wanted to point out one of the things that has helped us with our cash flow is that interest rate line item. As you can see, I was projecting about $110,000 for the year, effectively doubling that projection. And that's because I finally got into a sweep fund with PNC that pays us daily interest. That amounts to about roughly $17,000 a month that we gain as an organization. That started on the first few days in July. And that's a great help to us. That represents about $200,000 in additional income, and that's a way to get our money to work for us. All right, any questions, by the way, anybody? Please feel free to chime in if you need. Oh, I hit the wrong thing, sorry. Quarter 1 through 3 spend, as you saw on the prior slide, about 2.7 year to date, but with the exception of a couple of areas like digital, a little bit in the admin budget, which is primarily due to a tax burden. And we've paid a lot of taxes last year. We're going to pay more taxes this year and next year, which you'll see in the 2024 budget. But for the most part, business units have been meeting or are well below their budgets. So we've been spending wisely and according to what we anticipated we would spend. One note, I added that line item on the bottom for a business unit, that quadruple zero. It's just a way for me to track credit card charges. So we do accept charges via credit card It was kind of hidden before. I put it in that business unit just so I could see it. It's just there for visibility and for me to make sure that we're not getting overcharged by credit card companies. All right, let's move into 2024. Those are my predictions for sales, exhibits, sponsorships. By the way, we did receive more than anticipated sponsorship and exhibit dollars this year, for which I'm grateful. I'm grateful to those sponsors and exhibitors that have showed their support to the IAQG. It makes a difference in our finances, so thank you very much. So I am projecting new certificate sales to, at least in the outlying years, to kind of taper off a little bit. Funny enough, we seem to be not on a 3-year cycle, but on a 5-year cycle. So I've used some forecasting tools, and we ebb and flow on 5-year cycles as far as I can determine. It's not what I anticipated, but that's what the data looks like. So I don't know if somebody wants to look into that as a project. I anticipate more interest in next year for our monies that I've talked about in both our sweep account and our CD funds. And but I think the message here is our bottom line totals are going back to what I would consider more normal levels. So during the COVID years, we were putting and saving a lot more cash because we weren't having these sorts of events. Travel was curtailed for op assessors and so on. And now that we are effectively back to normal, we see those expenditures again. But at least as I see things right now, we're healthy. We will continue to be healthy. I don't see a need for any type of adjustments, barring some other significant strategic initiatives in the future. All right. Now, this is data that I believe was part of the voting member pack that Judy mentioned that was sent out earlier this month. So nothing new here. Really nothing new here as well. And the green highlighted column being the 2024 proposed budget that you will be asked to vote on. The only exception is there's an addition in the OASIS version 3 number. I've added about 200K. The number you saw before was basically for licensing and a couple of other things. I didn't add a number for enhancements. I corrected myself here. So those are the bottom line numbers. Again, this is data that went out as part of that voting member pack. I did speak to it yesterday during the OPC meeting. Nothing new here. Does anybody have any questions on the budget? Again, that is the green highlighted column. That's what we'll be voting on. We are still in a position where we are able to fund all BU requests at their fullest and continue with strategies going forward, and also continue and finish some work that's been started in prior years.
Alex,
That's
just to,
sure,
because there's a lot in that, and you know, a lot of people in the room may not have seen it, but just to recap, we've got a little bit of a deferred position, approximately 400K at this moment in time. It could increase to 750K while those audits come through the system. However, we've got sufficient cash and reserves in order to continue the operation, so there's no risk in terms of cash flow. The budget presented gets us back to a what I'd class as routine. So, you know, a 4.5 billion turnover with a margin of broadly 750 to 800K if you average it out. Like Alec mentioned, there's a couple of peaks and troughs in terms of the way that the certification years come in terms of data, but the business is healthy. We've got a balanced budget going forward, and therefore we've got room in order to invest in other areas to advance the industry.
Very true. Thank you, Andy. Anybody have questions? Again, I know I presented this before. For the voting members, you might not have had the opportunity to go through this. I have fielded some questions via email from some individuals and answered any concerns. I will point out in Business Unit 8520, which is the administration and basically where taxes are paid from, our tax burden will be significantly higher this year and next year because that interest that we earn, we pay 30% on in Belgium for taxes. So our tax burden, and there are structural changes in the Belgium tax code as well. Our tax burden is going to increase significantly. And that's where that money is in the admin budget, amongst some other things. Okay. All right, so I'll advance again and ask for a decision. So do the voting members accept the proposed IAQG fiscal 2024 budget as presented? So if I can see a show of hands. Yes. I'm sorry. Judy is re-indexing me over here for the online voting members. Please enter your vote. I think it was enter your, yeah, please enter a yes or no in the chat so we can record your voice as well. And I think we have a consensus on the vote. So we are going to proceed with that 2024 budget. And once again, any questions, let me know. Most of you know how to get hold of me. And I thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.
All right, Jeff, would you like to join us and we'll do the presentation because I did that flip-flop, correct? Yeah, if you would, please. Yeah, and just while he is coming up, we do have a few microphones, one at the front table, and then there's one or two out in the audience. So if you do have a question, then please let us know.
Thank you. Okay, hello. I'm Jeff Ewing from Northrop Grumman. I'm the American Aerospace Quality Group Space Forum. I'm here at the request to present, the privilege to present from Andre Lacroix. He's unable to make it this year and sends his regrets. It's a very, very exciting time in the space industry. If you Google items put into space, you're going to find that in 2013, there were about 7,000 items launched into space. And 2023, there were almost 15,000. So there's a lot more activity in terms of launching, and there's a lot of exciting things happen with respect to people launching, and it's just a really cool time to be in the space program. Here are our members of the Space Forum. We have a good turnout from all sectors, and we also have very good participation from important stakeholders. EASA, JAXA, NASA, DCMA are, we're very happy to have them in our committee. They are active members. They share their thoughts, concerns, and it's very positive to have them involved in our meetings. One other thing I would like to note is we always have a joint overlap in the meetings between the Space Forum and the Defense Forum. And in the United States, at the IAQG level, we hold our meetings jointly because a lot of the stakeholders and companies overlap. And so we get a lot of synergy out of that as well. One of the exciting things that's happening in Asia Pacific is the Japanese members of the IAQG are actively promoting the AS 9100 standards to a significant amount of space agencies throughout that region. So if you think about the geography and the many countries there with the different space agencies, they have been doing a wonderful job of promoting AS 9100, and it's a great opportunity for the additional standard owners and driving quality into the space industry. Next item that I want to talk about were a few of the things that we discussed in our meeting. As Eric mentioned earlier, we get feedback from NASA and DCMA with some requests to look at the process and some of the values to the standard. We're working with that as a common initiative with the defense team, working closely with our customers. They've also identified areas for improvement in 9104, and so we react to those, and had a good discussion yesterday with the leadership team regarding that. AS 9018 is an America's standard that's being worked, actively worked. It's going through a rewrite right now, and Irene McAllister from Boeing is going to present an update on that in spring of 2024. We also, with respect to that standard, have a lot of participation and from DCMA, and we're able to have some influence with DCMA in the training of that standard. And so there's some good progress being made there. A couple of other things. So with the IAQG SDO, the pilot project, it gave a return of experience on IA 9137 with respect to translation. We had a good discussion about that. And SCMH 7.17, which is the space application section of the supply chain management handbook. We discussed that as well. Our JAQG members, they presented an AIM trial case that was very helpful to just talk about some of the benefits of AIM. And then, as Eric mentioned this earlier, didn't want this to get lost on the group. So Blue Origin, a commercial provider launcher, is now, they reached out to us. We had Mark Rodriguez and myself met with them. They expressed interest in joining the AAQG, and at our last meeting, they became a member of that. And so pretty exciting to have a new commercial space company involved in the AAQG. That here's our priorities and focus. You can read through those. We're actively involved in a lot of standards. We're actively involved in working with other agencies and trying to influence as much as we can the perspectives of space into some of these important documents. So that's everything I wanted to say. Is there any questions for me or any comments? All right. Thank you very much.
So Mark Rodriguez is coming forward, and he'll present for defense on behalf of Siegfried.
Good morning, everyone. And as was mentioned, we're sending our best wishes to Siegfried on here on his behalf. So wanted to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing here across all sectors for defense. My name is Mark Rodriguez. I work at Lockheed Martin, and I am the AAQG Defense Forum Chair, and I'm also the Vice Chair for the IAQG under Siegfried. So as Jeff mentioned, we had a joint session this week with Space. We discussed several mutual topics of interest, and we took notes and relayed a lot of that information to the leadership team yesterday. We're always looking for opportunities to collaborate. Some of the things we talked about in the Defense Forum as well were the 9100 revision. We're all anticipating a review of the coordination draft. We're gathering inputs collectively from defense team key stakeholders, and we'll coordinate comments with the space team, formulate a joint team position. 9100 certification, we had this discussion about the perceived value. We'll be working with Space Forum to identify customer concerns and improve that customer relationship and feed that information to the leadership team. 9018, as was mentioned before, that is going to have a significant revision, and Irene will be updating both teams at the joint meeting in the spring. We're also had discussion about Oasis V3. We have a lot of our key stakeholders that have raised issues with the application, and so we'll be watching that progress as things are fixed, to see, listening to their voice, to see that their questions and concerns are being addressed and answered. And the IAQG SDO went to the meeting on Monday, the standards meeting, and there's a lot of standards that are in the revision process. And some of those may impact defense team members. We have defense team members on writing committees to help influence the language. And as Jeff mentioned, some of those translation issues that cropped up with 9137 may impede some of the other, may impact some of the other standards released, and that's what was, we'll be watching that as well. So all the sectors, AAQG, EAQG, APAQG, some of our things that we worked on for accomplishments is, you know, we worked together to influence the AS 9100 revision. We had formulated a position and put in suggestions, and some of them were accepted, so they'll be impacting the standard. We've increased member participation on the IAQG standard writing teams and the supply chain management handbook. We did release the update to 9146 supply chain management handbook materials this year also. We share information to maintain that participation with key stakeholders. We have, you know, DCMA, NATO, NASA, and JMOD. So we have good participation, not only at the sector level, but we had several people call in at the IAQG level meetings for defense. And we have an ongoing survey that Siegfried initiated in 2022, where we're trying to expand opportunities for land and sea organizations to adopt the ICOP scheme. Asia Pacific has done a really good job about reaching out and getting more people interested and involved. Our IAQG influence with AIA on standards and projects, listed a few there. We have Susie Neal, who helps support. I work with that AIA group as well, Brian Tenney, Jeff. And so while it's America's base, we're trying to influence to bring in IAQG influence so that we're not creating dual standards, we're harmonizing and we're expanding the use. NAS 413 is one example. It was revised this year, and we have discussions underway with the IAQG to harmonize that. NAS 412, which is the fraud prevention guidance, that was revised, and I participated on that project to make sure that it still aligns with 9146. And that, 9146 is the requirement standard, and 412 is the guidance. We also have a common supplier flow down project, and that has turned into IAQG initiative as well. So there is efforts underway to update the ARP 9009. And then, as mentioned, we report relevant subjects to the IAQG leadership team. For example, the perception of the 9100 certification, customer key stakeholder concerns, et cetera. So we're just tie in to make sure that everybody's questions and concerns are answered. So for our priority focus, again, just expand engagement with the active stakeholders and pursue additional membership, pursue opportunities for collaboration with the space committee as well, both at the sector level and at the international level. We'll be watching the 9100 revision progress and collecting comments with space to formulate a position and combine them so we can have good continuity about what we're requesting and looking for. Influencing IAQG standards. So we have several in the revision process, as I mentioned, but we also have membership participation in those writing teams to help influence. And still working with AIA and DCMA and other industry IAQG industry projects, as I mentioned, the three that are still we're working. And we meet with Space Forum members to prioritize topics and address together. And I think that's it. Any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
All right, as you can see by the agenda and the writing on the clock wall, we're running a little bit ahead, so good job to everybody and your participation. We are going to go ahead and take a break. It'll be a 30-minute break. That'll get us back here by 10 o'clock in the local time, and then we'll pick it up from there and keep on going. And depending on how the second sessions of the presentations go, I think that will likely allow us to get out at a reasonable time, because I know many of you are still trying to work through flights and make different arrangements for yourself. So if you could be back in your seats ready to go by 10 o'clock here locally in California, and for those of you that are virtually online, that's approximately 30 minutes from now. All right, thanks very much.